Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I think everybody high up in the office should be fired. Simple as that. They knew this was coming.
Anger and frustration as BC Ferries cancels key sailings this weekend due to staffing shortages. Also,
there's really low unemployment numbers, but there's still a lot of people who are excluded from the workforce.
untapped labor, who's left out as BC logs its lowest unemployment rates in 3 years. And
finally, there is no toxicity around me and it's just all the love.
defying convention, how Jolene Queen Sloan came to celebrate her Punjabi roots in drag.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Anita is away tonight. I'm Lien Yeung. Thanks for joining us. Passengers using BC Ferries are sounding their frustration. A number of sailings on key routes this weekend have been cancelled. Continued staffing shortages are causing the holdup. Our Zara Premji has more on what this could mean for your travels.
Please proceed to the overhead walkway for boarding.
You could be hearing a lot less of this and a lot more of this at the ferry terminal.
Could get tricky. Could be a little upsetting. Could be a little upsetting.
Frustrated travelers calling the ongoing staffing shortages at BC Ferries and the outright cancellations of sailings unacceptable.
You put it this way, I think everybody high up in the office should be fired. Simple as that. They knew this was coming.
I think somebody should get off their butt and do something about it because everybody's screaming, gotta make tourism work, and it ain't gonna work if we can't get to the island.
On Thursday, BC Ferries announced more cancellations for Friday and Sunday between Twason and Schwartz Bay. And this is not the first, second, or third time this has been seen over the last year, according to the union.
About a year ago, the union had concerns about the reliability of the system, and we went to government and shared those concerns. And unfortunately, we've been right. There was challenges with resiliency.
The union says amid staffing shortages, the members still working are left to pick up the slack.
They've been coming in overtime over and over and over for months. And we're seeing burnout, we're seeing exhaustion.
BC Ferry says the reasons for being short-staffed haven't changed over the last few months and continue to be due to higher than expected retirements, COVID-19, and struggles to find qualified mariners and crews. But it says it has several monetary incentives in place to attract the workforce.
Ferries obviously has been on a recruiting drive, but recruitment and retention are two different things. And we're seeing a tired workforce, and maybe most concerning, we're going into summer.
BC Ferry says it has hired 850 new employees, but still needs another 150.
It's going to be a bumpy summer. And
Well, life is life. I mean, that's why I go back to the guys in head office. They've made the bed. Now we have to live in it. So just my opinion.
Well, BC Ferry says it has exhausted all avenues to find additional staff. It does say if they are able to get the sailings that have been canceled back onto the water and they do find additional staff, they will be sure to contact customers immediately. Zara Premji, CBC News, Twason.
And it's no wonder BC Ferries is finding it hard to recruit new workers. The unemployment rate in BC is at a 3-year low, back to pre-pandemic levels. And while many businesses are struggling to fill empty roles, as John Hernandez reports, experts say there is still plenty of untapped labor in BC. You just need to know where to look.
We'll pick up the butts around here.
It's been a steady 7 months for Jacqueline Brooks. Her latest gig has her cleaning up city streets and even doing neighborhood watches.
They keep us busy and they keep us all over the city.
Brooks spent much of the pandemic unemployed before getting into Mission Possible, a temporary employment program that helps disadvantaged residents build skills and find permanent work.
Makes them feel more important. You get a reason to get up in the morning and go. Yeah. A reason to go to sleep even, to look forward to something to do the next day.
Valuable experience as BC's labor market heats up to pre-pandemic numbers. According to Statistics Canada, the province's unemployment rate is the lowest it's been in 3 years at 4.5%. Last month alone, BC gained more than 5,000 jobs, all while many sectors continue to grapple with a labor shortage.
Part of it is just a very uneven recovery. of sectors. So certain sectors are recovering much faster than others.
The province says there simply aren't enough workers to go around, and it plans to bring in more workers from out of province. But some experts disagree, saying employers just need to know where to look.
Traditionally, certain groups have lower participation in the labor force. And these are untapped sources.
There's really low unemployment numbers, but there's still a lot of people who are excluded from the workforce. And so what we want to see is an inclusive recovery from this pandemic. That's a good one to say.
Back at Mission Possible, leaders say their crews are just a small sample of the workers who are ready and able to answer the call.
There's hundreds, if not thousands of people just in this community who are looking for a work opportunity that can really be transformative for them.
Labor shortages that can in part be curbed just by giving someone a chance. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
The first week of the trial of the man accused of sexually extorting Port Coquitlam teenager Amanda Todd has wrapped up in BC Supreme Court. Aidan Coban has pleaded not guilty to 5 criminal counts, including possession of child pornography, child luring, and harassment. Crown prosecutors claim the 43-year-old Dutch man used fake social media accounts to threaten the teen, demanding she send graphic, compromising images in exchange for his silence. The case hinges on digital forensics that link files to Coban and devices that he was using. The parents of Amanda Todd have testified how their daughter endured years of abuse and torment. She was only 15 when she died by suicide in 2012. The trial continues next week and is expected to last 7 weeks. Sentencing for convicted former Headley singer Jacob Hogard, who's from the Fraser Valley, has been delayed till October. On Sunday, a jury found Hogard guilty on 1 charge of sexual assault causing bodily harm against an Ottawa woman. 2 other charges, an alleged assault and sexual interference against a teen fan, came back not guilty. Sentencing was expected in August, but a delay has pushed that back. Hogard faces a maximum sentence of 14 years. And starting tomorrow, fully vaccinated travelers will no longer face random COVID-19 testing at Canada's airports. The government says it's a move to try and clear the backlog at busy airports. But as Renee Filipponi reports, there's questions about what exactly is causing the congestion.
For passengers arriving on international flights today, the suspension of random testing is welcome news.
I've just had one and it was an extra 20 minutes in a queue that I could have done without.
Until the end of June, random testing will be suspended for arriving vaccinated passengers. After that, it will be done off-site.
The airports aren't designed to be mini healthcare centers, and so this will help with staff, it'll help with congestion, and particularly in those times when we have lots of flights coming in.
The delays at Canadian airports have been extensive. People waiting for hours in security and customs, even missing flights. In a statement, the Greater Toronto Airport Authority says this is welcome news for the upcoming summer travel season, as it is expected to reduce processing time, but that there are many factors that cause congestion, including staffing.
I think the holdup is the inexperienced staff. As much as they are trying their best and their hardest, it's a lot of new staff. There was a high turnover rate in every area in the airport.
Other industry experts say there are still other COVID policies that are part of the problem. This should be a first step.
I'm not sure it's really going to solve the big problem, which is really the ArriveCAN app and the CBSA times required to make sure everybody's adhering to the regulations in the ArriveCAN app.
But for now, it's no vacation for travelers arriving or leaving Canadian airports. Instead, it's an experience testing their patience to the limits.
I counted probably 6 customs workers working for a line of like 300 people, I would estimate, 200 people. So it was really bad.
And with chronic staffing issues dragging on, delays and congestion at airports could last through the summer. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, Canadians aren't just fed up with airport delays. For many, the stress is at passport offices. Delays there have many worried they won't be able to travel at all. Stephen D'Souza looks at the extreme steps some are taking.
Before many Canadians can take off, first they have to pack for the sidewalk.
A winter coat, chairs, we have some snacks in the bag.
Ahmed Zakri arrived at 3:30 this morning, 5 hours before this Toronto passport office opened. In late July, he's hoping to visit family in Egypt after 6 long years.
I'm freaking out a bit. I'm trying to keep it under control, but yeah.
You need a trip booked to line up without an appointment.
How are you traveling next 45 business days?
Mail-in applications take more than 9 weeks to process. The promise here is 2 weeks. Vicky Loberg, though, applied in person in March.
It's ridiculous. I go by the rules and I'm stuck.
In 2 weeks, she wants to be with her pregnant daughter in Ireland.
I didn't get to see her get married. I didn't get to see the first child, and now this is the second, and I really need to get there.
The government says passport demand is unprecedented. Back in 2020, demand was low. The following year, it tripled and could triple again this year.
Is 9 weeks plus an acceptable timeline for this most basic of government services?
This is something that's happening around the world, but we're putting additional resources in place to deal with it here in Canada.
A proof of travel?
Service Canada workers say they warned the government this was coming.
We've had physical violence. We've had computer monitors thrown at our members.
And they warn hiring new staff isn't a quick fix.
Even just hiring people now isn't going to make much of an impact for the next several months.
Meanwhile, for an extra $20, Ahmed Zakri was told he'll have his passport in 2 weeks.
Getting here so early paid off because in the end it was just 5 minutes and we were done.
At least he hopes he's done and won't have to return to the sidewalk. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Toronto.
Ottawa is putting money on the table to help BC rebuild from last year's devastating wildfires. Bill Blair, the federal minister of emergency preparedness, is promising $207 million. And he says this is just the first payment to come.
It will help rebuild critical infrastructure. It'll allow people to get back to their homes, and it will ensure that our communities are built back safer and more resilient. We know that this has been an enormously difficult year for many people that face the loss of their homes and communities. But we want you to know that we are here for you.
Almost all of the village of Lytton burned to the ground nearly a year ago on June 30th. 2 people died. Farnworth says the province is closely involved with that rebuild as the municipality recovers.
The community has been working to come up with a plan, a short-term plan, which is now in place, working on the medium and the long-term plans. We've indicated that we will be there for that. So that means commitments to rebuild that municipal infrastructure, whether it's the RCMP station, the health center, the municipal hall. So there's been a significant amount of work done by the province in terms of supporting the community, and there will continue to be that because we want people back. The reality is recovery does take time. It can take quite a bit of time.
He says the physical rebuilding process is expected to begin in September. Well, if you thought it rained quite a bit yesterday, you were right. That was the rainiest single day in June in 30 years. And we're not even halfway through the month, and we've already topped our monthly average. All that rain has made it extra hard on farmers trying to get planting going. Lindsay Duncombe went to the hard-hit Sumas Prairie, where farmers are saying it has been one challenge after another.
It's a fight, and you're always fighting, and everyone's getting tired of the fight right now.
Even inside his barn, Grant Bauman can't escape the sound of rain.
Atmospheric river is a term we associate with pretty bad stuff. Disaster right away is the first thing you think.
This was Bauman's farm last November.
I got water rushing out of the calf barn because it's coming in the back door so fast, it's pushing in the front.
The family lost feed for the cows then. Now they can't plant any.
We still cannot get in the ground. It's too wet. We can't even drive tractors on the land. We just sink.
This sopping June has delayed crops throughout the Fraser Valley. These strawberries should be harvested by now.
We don't even want to grow outside anymore. We're like, okay, if we're going to continue in this business and if we're actually going to be making ends meet, we need to have some more control over our weather.
Man Farms gained control by moving much of its crop inside. This new 1-hectare greenhouse stacks strawberries vertically. Less weather, more plants.
Guess how many minutes we water this?
How many?
Only 10 minutes a day.
Really?
That's it. 10 minutes a day, maybe 2 or 3 times a day. I've been fortunate enough to go all over the world and see innovation in agriculture. The Fraser Valley is far behind. We need to implement innovation.
Easier said than done. How can you adapt dairy farming?
I'm not sure there's an easy answer for that.
The fight, it seems, is all about endurance.
And you just keep going. It's just like in November, we just keep going.
From fall flooding to spring rain and whatever comes next. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, near Yarrow.
All right, I really feel for those farmers, hey, Joe, and I bet you do too. And, you know, we had such a wet day today. Today, a little bit of relief, you know, a little insight about what's ahead.
Yeah, Lien, this break couldn't come at a better time. I keep using the word relentless over the past few months, and then I keep using the word relentless. This wet month definitely likely to continue. But as I said, we've got a bit of a break. Let me start you off with the temperatures. We're not seeing anything too extreme and almost at our seasonal mark, because the cool side of the past few months has also been a story. 18 in through Abbotsford, YVR at an 18 right now. Sometimes I like to challenge the radar. I'll show you that in a moment. Just watching the flood watches and warnings and high stream advisories in response to all of that rain yesterday, as you said, seeing records for the amount of rain. And we will continue to see water levels rise over the weekend. But yes, back to challenging the radar. I thought I had about 60 to 90 more seconds, but the showers have started in North Van. So heads up, I know we had a beautiful day today. This is just a showery evening and overnight. We're not expecting to see any great rainfall totals, maybe 5 millimeters across the south coast. This is the top end of that atmospheric river. So it has sunk south, but it is leaving behind just a little bit of instability. So we will see those showers spread across the interior tomorrow afternoon. Again, not a lot of rain, Lien, but it's sort of made this break short. I will talk more about the long weekend because I think we've got some sunshine in there. Not long, but you can make it long if you want.
Okay, all right. Well, we're going to need some of that sunshine. Thank you.
I think so. You're welcome.
Thanks, Joe. Well, it's not always easy to come out and embrace your identity, add cultural barriers, and it is a hurdle many struggle to overcome. But Jolene Queen Sloan has done just that. Our Benit Brach spoke to the Punjabi drag queen as she celebrates her first Pride in BC.
Embracing the glitz and color of Indian glamour, drag is a dream come true for Jolene Sloan, who is celebrating her Punjabi culture in a way that's turning heads in her community.
So I would say it's just the roots that I'm connected with, and it's very important nowadays as well to celebrate your own culture. This is an ornament that we wear in our hair.
Jolene arrived as an international student in 2016 and began drag in Yukon after a hard breakup. Now, every week, the stage in Vancouver has become her safe haven.
But for the first time, these people were telling me that we love the culture that you bring in the community. Not only the people from South Asian community are able to celebrate your culture, but people from different races. Finally, there is no toxicity around me, and it's just all the love that I can see.
But acceptance in drag has not come easy.
I had, experiences where I was beaten up for being gay back home.
Jolene is a drag persona for Priyanshu Grover. He participated in dance competitions with women and came out as gay to his parents in India. While close family has for the most part been supportive, being accepted as a drag queen by less immediate relatives, society, and friends has been much more challenging. He says they have been curious, but truly never understood him.
So I pretty much lost everybody who was there.
So he came to Canada to own his identity and chase his drag dreams with hopes to better educate those back home. And the audience here takes in the show of Jolene.
It creates a huge safe space for brown folks at home that feel like they're not represented enough.
It feels really amazing to come out here and just see other South Asians just thrive in their industry.
This Punjabi drag queen also wants to inspire more BIPOC talent in drag.
We want to see diversity, we want to see people of color in screens, we want to see people represented.
And as she celebrates her first Pride Month, Jolene's message is of self-acceptance and love. Benit Brach, CBC News, Vancouver.
warning you one smoke at a time. Why new regulations will put a warning on each individual cigarette, but will anyone actually butt out? And thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, GEM. Well, the Edmonton Oilers had one of its most successful seasons in years. Their general manager says his goal is to keep this success going, as he should. CBC's Min Dhariwal tells us how they are preparing for the next season.
Rantanen shoots, scores!
Getting swept by the Colorado Avalanche in 4 games would suggest the Oilers still have a ways to go before they can contend for the Cup. But Oilers general manager Ken Holland isn't convinced his club is that far off.
We had the highest point total, like I said, in 35 years. We got to the Final Four. We beat a 110-point team in Calgary, but we're not good enough. We're not good enough right now today to win the Stanley Cup.
Holland says don't hold your breath for any blockbuster trades to put Edmonton over the top. Instead, like all great teams, he wants to see the youth within the organization take some strides.
You know, if you're 24 and under, we need you to take a bigger piece of the pie. And whether you've been on the team or you're in the American League, we need you to push.
There will be some moves needed, though, with only so much money available to spend. Goaltending is another area which needs to be dealt with. Then there's Evander Kane, a player that's definitely in Holland's sights.
Am I interested in bringing him back? Yes, I think he had a big impact on our team. Not only his ability to score goals, but he plays with an edge. I thought there was wonderful chemistry between him and Connor.
Helping turn the team around was another solid couple of additions mid-season. Head coach Jay Woodcroft and assistant Dave Manson. Woodcroft flourished and said getting the team to play hockey in the month of June was a huge step.
And so I'm proud of our players. I'm proud of our coaching staff. I'm proud of our organization that we made it to that point. But there's more there.
I think Jay came in and, like I said, he grabbed the group, took charge, made some tweaks, and that's what was needed to get us going, and did a fabulous job.
One which helped the franchise return to competitive playoff hockey and had fans chanting for even more. Holland says his plan now is to find a roster that will keep the team qualifying for the playoffs year after year. A strategy which he hopes eventually pays off with a new banner hanging in the rafters at Rogers Place. Min Dhariwal, CBC News, Edmonton.
Canada plans to become the first country in the world to print warnings on individual cigarettes, not just their boxes. As Lauren Pelly reports, the new regulations will also expand warnings on cigarette packaging and will include new graphic photos.
We know that health messaging on tobacco packaging works.
So the federal government wants to add more, not just warnings on the packages, but on every cigarette, with possible messages like a poison in every puff.
Adding health warnings on individual tobacco products will help ensure that these essential messages reach people, including the youth, who often access cigarettes one at a time in social situations.
Canada first approved shocking warnings on cigarette packs more than 20 years ago. Since then, fewer and fewer people smoke. Between 2015 and 2019, daily or occasional smoking rates dropped among both male and female Canadians over the age of 12.
But the average doesn't tell the whole story. There are communities in the north where nearly 50% of the population still are smoking.
Regular smokers in Toronto told us warnings on each cigarette won't make a difference.
Because the damage is done. I'm already addicted to cigarette smoking.
I think it's going to make more of a difference to the younger smokers, the newer generation.
So it doesn't have to work for everyone to be significant and to have an effect in Canada.
This researcher on tobacco control policies says the changes are a positive step. What concerns him is a proposed 6 to 9 month period for implementation if new regulations get adopted.
I think that's too long. After all, cigarettes in stores, they're sold after just a few months.
New packaging will also include a longer list of health impacts. The government's goal is for less than 5% of the population to use tobacco by 2035.
48,000 Canadians die unnecessarily each year. Smokers lose, on average, 10 years of life expectancy.
Other countries are exploring even bolder approaches to curb smoking rates. New Zealand and the UK are both looking at raising the legal smoking age year by year, with a goal of eventually outlawing cigarettes. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
The number of confirmed cases of monkeypox in Canada has risen to 112, nearly 100 of them in Quebec. But those numbers are expected to grow as other suspect cases undergo further lab tests. Dr. Theresa Tam says the Public Health Agency is working with provinces and territories to try and stop the chains of transmission.
After reviewing the data on the current status of the monkeypox outbreak and evidence on the safety and protection offered by the Imvamune vaccine, NACI recommends a single dose of Imvamune may be offered to individuals with high-risk exposures of a probable or confirmed case of monkeypox or within a setting where transmission is happening, ideally within 4 days of exposure. Affected provinces are currently implementing vaccination strategies based on their local epidemiology. At this time, a mass vaccination campaign is not needed to address this outbreak in Canada.
The U.S. is reeling after a dramatic primetime TV hearing outlining what happened in the Capitol attack, why Democrats say it's further evidence of Trump's hand in the day's events, and why Republicans are calling it political theater. That's next.
Farmers in British Columbia were dumping on the provincial government today, and in a big way. They went to the legislature, dumped thousands of vegetables on the front lawn, then gave them all away. Ian Hannamansing explains why.
Free food for some Victoria residents, the legislature became the unlikely setting for a lettuce, cabbage, and potato free-for-all.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Produce farmers in British Columbia came here to illustrate their frustration.
The Americans are just burying us. There's nothing more we can do. We need some kind of a protection from them.
Last week, the farmers invited the media to watch them plow produce under, to bring attention to their allegation that U.S. exporters are dumping surplus lettuce here below their true cost at prices BC farmers say is unfair competition. Some economists, like this professor, say if farmers can't compete, they should get out of business.
You have to allow industrial adjustment to take place. And the individuals who are affected have to live with it.
But the farmers say the provincial government should feel obliged to help them out because it was the provincial government that brought in the Agricultural Land Reserve Act that prevents farmers from using land like this for anything but farming. Today, the farmers seem to get some help. The federal government announced a temporary increase in the duty on U.S. head lettuce from 9% to 15%. The provincial government said it too would support farmers.
I hope you don't suffer any more significant losses. I feel badly about it. I think you know I do, and I think we can cure the problem.
But many farmers said the minister was too vague. Some will meet with him tomorrow and will ask him to find a way to encourage people in the province to buy BC produce, even if it's more expensive.
19 million Americans are estimated to have watched last night's hearing on the January 6th mob attack on the U.S. Capitol. Congressional investigators presented evidence gathered over 18 months, saying it all pointed to an attempted coup led by then-President Donald Trump. CBC's Susan Ormiston on the struggle to sell the truth to those who refuse to believe it.
We have a breach of the Capitol. It's important that the American people understand what truly happened and to understand that the same forces that led January 6th remain at work today.
President Biden trying to persuade Americans to sit up and pay attention to the historic and sprawling January 6th investigation, including evidence that Donald Trump endorsed the mob calling to hang Mike Pence.
Maybe our supporters have the right idea. Mike Pence, quote, deserves it.
In a post today, Trump denied, calling that a made-up story.
All they're doing is trying to paint a new political narrative that voters need to think about in November.
Last night's hearing was a primetime dud.
The primetime hearing dismissed by supporters. Fox News slammed it as propaganda and a circus.
Well, the dullest, the most boring. There's absolutely nothing new. Multi-hour Democratic fundraiser masquerading as a January 6th hearing.
We believe Donald Trump is responsible. He lit the flame. He summoned the mob.
The January 6th committee wants to paint Trump as the central figure in inciting the terror and threats on Capitol Hill.
There are a lot of American people that believe in Donald Trump, believe he's telling them the truth. They're being abused and they're being lied to.
More evidence will be laid out next week, with the Department of Justice watching as part of its criminal investigation. But Friday, as Americans woke up to inflation rates not seen in 40 years and record gas prices, will the January 6th hearings turn heads? 3 more next week. On Monday, we expect to hear how Donald Trump knew he had lost the election, but still whipped up a massive effort to spread fraudulent information, according to the committee. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Washington.
The head of the Catholic Church has canceled an upcoming trip to Africa due to health issues. Pope Francis was set to arrive in the Congo and South Sudan in July. CBC's Olivia Stefanovich now on what the change in plans means for the Pope's visit here to Canada.
Following doctor's orders, Pope Francis is putting a pause on travel. First delaying a trip to Lebanon scheduled for this month. Now postponing a visit to the Democratic Republic of Congo in South Sudan, planned for the beginning of July.
I hope he gets better and come to Canada and to Nunavut.
The Pope's trip to Canada at the end of next month is still on, but some residential school survivors are growing anxious.
If there is any chance that the Pope will not come in, then I think there's going to be a lot of disappointment.
Pope Francis made a commitment to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis delegates at the Vatican last spring to visit. Following an initial apology, he offered for the conduct of some Roman Catholic Church members at residential schools.
Chiedo perdono a Dio.
The statement that you should read.
Survivor Kenneth Young expects the Pope to apologize again in Canada and go even further.
And state that he's sorry for what the Catholic Church did, and not say that he's sorry for what a few people did.
Young spent years advocating for a papal apology on Canadian soil.
This has to be it, this visit. I think this visit is going to happen.
Papal visits draw hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, taxing for an 85-year-old experiencing persistent knee pain, recently seen using a wheelchair.
This is a very important trip. It is more critical, I think, for Pope Francis' legacy.
He's deeply committed to reconciliation. He has supported the bishops in our building of relations with Indigenous peoples.
So far, it's full steam ahead, but with limitations. The Pope is only traveling to Edmonton, Quebec City, and Iqaluit, spending up to an hour at each event.
I'm confident that if it's at all possible for him to come, he will come.
That is the hope for the millions of Roman Catholics and Indigenous peoples counting down the days to the historic visit. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Battle of Severodonetsk in Ukraine's east continues, even as Ukrainian forces say they are outgunned in some cases 7-1. Margaret Evans is close to the front lines, where Ukrainian resistance is under intense pressure.
This is what Vladimir Putin's war has brought to the Donbass. Ghost towns, bruised and battered, and frail caretakers left behind, those who can't or won't leave. Svetlana Obosna is 82. I'm not afraid, she says, because this is a war and you have to be strong. Sloviansk is about 60 kilometers from Severodonetsk, scene of some of the fiercest fighting of the war. The battle for the city is considered pivotal, given Russia's perceived intention of taking all of the industrial heartland. These pictures are from a state-owned Russian news agency. Frightened people still in the city live underground. This woman since April 6th. A bomb hit her house, she says. It fell through the roof and the ceiling in the hall. It's still lying there. People in Sloviansk fear if the Russians take Severodonetsk, they could be next. The building behind me was damaged in a rocket attack just about a week ago, and you wouldn't think it to look at it, but there are still people living inside. No water, no electricity, and we are right in the center of Sloviansk. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called fighting in the Donbass extremely difficult, but he insists Ukrainian troops are holding. Other cities of the Donbass, which the occupiers now consider to be the primary targets, stand, he says. But at a terrible cost. Ukrainian authorities say they're losing as many as 100 soldiers a day. Repeating appeals for more and better weaponry, given the strength of the enemy they're facing. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Sloviansk.
For the first time, researchers are revealing a shipwreck lost for over 300 years. It carried a future king who narrowly escaped off the coast of England. Kayla Hounsell has more on the wreck that's giving us a glimpse into the past.
They spent decades diving shipwrecks from the First and Second World Wars. Two brothers who then decided to search for something different. One picked up this book and discovered the Gloucester. Then he picked up the phone and called his brother.
I said, are you up for a new adventure? And go looking for the Gloucester, sank in 1682, cannon everywhere potentially, and he was just in there like a flash.
It took 4 years, but they eventually found the ship's watery grave 45 kilometers off the coast of Norfolk.
I could see dark shadow on the seabed, so you know you're on some wreck. And I just knelt there, took the moment in, for probably 5 minutes, and just unbelievable. Just one I'll never forget.
That was 15 years ago. For security reasons, it's been a secret until now.
If you're a super naval history geek like me, maritime history geek like me, this is the best news ever.
This historian has been in on the secret for more than a decade. It wasn't until the ship's bell was discovered in 2012 that it was confirmed as the Gloucester, a royal shipwreck carrying the Duke of York, who became King James II. He survived, but an estimated 200 others did not.
It had royals on board, it had aristocrats on board, it had posh people on board, so we got lots of very interesting objects.
Navigational equipment, personal possessions, even unopened bottles of wine. One bearing the crest of ancestors of U.S. President George Washington.
So we're trying to work out scientific ways of having can we get a little tiny probe in the cork without damaging that cork and suck a little bit of wine out. This is exciting scientific news.
And this is just the beginning, as researchers work to uncover even more history, a time capsule of life more than 300 years ago. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
We have the beaver as our national symbol. We have the maple tree as our official tree. Heck, we even have a national horse. But what is our national bird? We talk all things fine and feathered coming up. And here's a live shot near Flower Island. That weekend forecast, rain check, sun check, even rainbows. Johanna has all of that coming up. That's next. Stay with us.
The Canada goose may not have a lot of natural predators to worry about, but that doesn't mean they won't heck you up. Not only do they bully humans, they're known for being total ding-dongs to other species as well. One of the most bonkers accounts involved a male Canada goose defending his nest from a different species of goose that wandered nearby. Having none of its nearby wandering, the Canada goose attacked the intruder for an entire hour. Eventually, it pecked the head of the other goose into the mud so far, it was unable to move and suffocated. It's thought this happened due to the high hormone levels in geese during mating season, and the other goose's inability to leave because its head was being pecked into the ground. This extra-confident disposition comes from a personality trait that is common among many successful urban animals, a reduced fear of humans, or in the case of the Canada goose, zero fear of humans.
Over 50 years of diving in Howe Sound, you start to appreciate the intrinsic beauty of the sound. Sponge reefs are found nowhere else in Canada, nowhere else in the world. The most pristine reefs are right here in Howe Sound. Talk about an oasis. You know, if this was a coral reef out there, there would have been no hesitation about closing it. We get a lot of fishing pressure out there, a lot of poaching pressure out there, and we need more people watching it all the time, or we're going to lose the glass sponge reefs.
It's really valuable when members of the community want to contribute to science. There's an estimated 90% of species we have yet to even discover in the oceans. And the ones we do know about, we still have so much to learn about their basic biology. And that's true for many, 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 many animals in the ocean. It's sometimes hard for people to understand that there's so many unknowns still.
If you've ever been a parent, one of the things that you always want to do is protect the world for your offspring. If we don't actually document these sites, we can't protect them. I mean, they're just screaming for protection. This is absolutely incredible. It's beyond science fiction, and it's on our planet right now.
All right, a little trivia for you. Can you name Canada's national bird? Well, you might have a couple guesses. There are some obvious ones. So you might think the Canada goose, maybe a loon, like the name of our loonie. In Vancouver, Anna's hummingbird was adopted as the city's official bird. But when it comes to the official federal fowl, it's actually a bit of a trick question. You may have noted that. Canada does not have a national bird, but there is a campaign to change that. David Bird is an ornithologist. Yes, Bird, that is actually his last name. He's part of a petition and has published a book that he sent to every MP in Ottawa, asking them to consider a bird that many here in BC are familiar with, the whiskey jack, also known as the Canada jay. And now David Bird joins us from his backyard near Victoria, where I hear hummingbirds are hovering by. Hi, David.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well. So I think it might be surprising to many that Canada doesn't have a national bird. Why should we have one?
Well, 106 countries have national birds, including the United States to the south, the bald eagle, and they highly revere that bird, using trained birds at various major sporting events like the Indianapolis 500 and so on. And the thing about having a national bird is that I think that it kind of exemplifies the Canadian spirit. We have a national flag, and we also have a national tree, the maple tree. We have a national mammal, the beaver. We have a national summer sport, which is lacrosse, a national winter sport, which is ice hockey, and we even have a national horse called the Canadian, which is actually, there's a parliamentary act on that. And as we're trying to do the same thing for a national bird. And, you know, birds are very, very visual creatures, and scientific studies have shown that people will live longer, happier, healthier lives if they have birds in their environment. And birds provide big bucks for our economy, for bird watching, bird feeding, and they clothe us, feed us, pollinate our plants, eat insect pests, and all sorts of things. And how many aviators, filmmakers, and composers haven't been stimulated by the beauty of birds and their flight and their song?
All right, there's the ornithologist making the case for the bird, and you're also making the case for the whiskey jack. So the Canada Jay, that's your choice for Canada's bird. It already has the name. What makes this bird so special?
Well, there are actually 18 reasons I could give you, but I'll cut to the chase. I'll give you the top 5 or 6.
Okay.
First of all, it breeds in every territory and every province in our country. Its range almost mirrors our borders of our country. It extends a little bit into Alaska and down into the Pacific Northwest of the States in the Rocky Mountains. It's also has amazing characteristics. It's an exceptionally friendly bird. It'll come down and land on your head or your hand or your camera, telescope, or whatever without even having food available. It's among the, it's a member of the corvid family, which are the crows, magpies, jays, and ravens, arguably the smartest birds on the planet. And the bird is extremely tough. It doesn't migrate in the wintertime like a lot of other birds do. It basically stays here year-round. It stays with its mate year-round, and they breed sometimes at temperatures of minus 30 degrees centigrade. And best of all, the Canada Jay has not been selected as any kind of official or national bird by any other geographical entity, not like the common loon, which is Ontario's bird, and the snowy owl, which is Quebec's bird. So this is a bird that's fresh and new, just like our flag was in 1965.
And it's named the Canada Jay already, so it seems to make a lot of sense. All right. Thank you for talking to us about that today, ornithologist David Bird. Good luck with your petition.
Thank you very much.
All right, and Joe is back. Joe, did he convince you? Are you partial to the Whiskey Jay?
You know what? I liked the cheekiness of the Whiskey Jack before, but I'm completely convinced. I was going to say the Crow, and if the Crow is listening, then I still choose the Crow. They're way too smart, but I'm convinced. Are you?
I got to say, first of all, I'm not a huge fan of birds in general. They kind of scare me. I did like how, the Whiskey Jack mates with one partner. I thought that was very nice. You know, that's always nice to see. Monogamy.
There are multiple good. You see, both of us are convinced for very different reasons. Yeah. It doesn't matter. We are here for the Whiskey Jack. So yeah, I will stay tuned, and I am here for the forecast. Let me take you through the temperatures across the country tonight. And as you're watching, you can reminisce about the Canadian borders reflecting the migratory pattern also of the Whiskey Jack. So much information there. 23 in through Kelowna tonight. Seeing a little bit of a push of warm temperatures in through Regina, Calgary, Edmonton, and 16 out towards Halifax, hanging on to high teens in Toronto tonight. We still have those showers that are sprinkling across the south coast. Seeing them now for most of Metro Vancouver, scattered. But again, a general 5 to 10 millimeters tonight. Generally dry for our Saturday, and then looking for showers to return for most of the province for Sunday. 19 and through Victoria. Port Hardy, you've got those showers moving in the morning. You might get them over and done with and see some sunshine in the afternoon. Prince Rupert, pretty steady rain along with 50-kilometer-per-hour winds for you. Thunderstorm risk once again through Prince George. I know you've had a very active week. Williams Lake, though, down through Kelowna, generally dry, sunny, and mild in through the Okanagan, and very wet and thundery in towards the Kootenays. You're actually getting a separate system punching up from the south as we head into Saturday and Sunday. So a mixed bag forecast, but I'm pleased we've got at least a couple of sunny icons to line up with our weekend. Saturday looking gorgeous, 20 degrees. And again, it's nice that we're not seeing any extreme temperatures to really amplify that snow melt. We are watching it closely, but as you can see in the week ahead, no major rainmakers for the south coast as we await the continued melt of our snowpack through the middle and upper Fraser. Showers return on Sunday, but again, keep your eye out for some blue skies. Looks pretty unsettled to kick off the week. And then, Leanne, I am watching a little warm up for the end of next week. Definitely not summer, but we are getting close to the official start. But plan for basically everything in the forecast this week.
That's right. Okay, I do like that we're getting close to summer and with the temperatures
That's
and all
as far
that.
as I can go.
Yeah, there we go.
Exactly.
Okay. All right,
Close.
thank you for that, Jo.
You're welcome.
Well, allergy season is well underway, and so far it's been a rougher one than usual for many. Pollen counts are high in many parts of the country, including the north of BC and the prairies. As Bonnie Allen explains, last year's drought and heat are being blamed.
As an allergy sufferer with asthma, Jacqueline Woods had to take matters into her own hands.
See that? The plumes of yellow pollen, and these are, again, pressure washed twice already.
She's washing the pollen out of her spruce trees so she and her family don't breathe it in, something that happened last weekend.
The wind sort of rustled through the spruces, and I saw this tornado of yellow pollen, and instantly went inside and grabbed my mask.
But her son couldn't escape it and required medical attention.
It had already progressed to a lung infection for him. So he finally went back to school to antibiotics, inhalers. I think he's got 3 inhalers.
When I tap the branches, the pollen is just coming off.
This plant expert says the staggering amount of pollen we're seeing from coniferous trees like spruce, pine, and fir is the result of last summer's drought and extreme heat. Those conditions were stressful for trees and triggered a survival mechanism.
When a plant is threatened, when its survival is threatened, its reproduction system can sometimes go into overdrive.
Trees overproduced male cones that are now shedding pollen, and it's often highly allergenic. Francis Coates heads up a research lab that's tracking high pollen levels across Canada. Their measurements show the pollen started flying early this year and just kept coming.
Every year is different, but I'm comparing this year to last year, and the peaks are much, much higher this year.
You'll see even with the 2 nights of pressure washing and the rain we had through the night, there's still some live pollen in here.
This should all be over in a week or two, so Woods can enjoy going outside again. Bonnie Allen, CBC News, Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan.
A subject that has been long avoided no more. Why even NASA wants to talk about UFOs and what they hope to discover. Stay with us, that's next.
Many of the world's best golfers are competing in Canada once again at Toronto's St. George's Golf Club.
I missed it a lot, really.
Fans able to see their heroes up close and in person. In fact, sometimes a little too close.
It's coming at us.
It's definitely coming this way. Heads up, heads up. Fortunately, nobody was hurt by this Jonathan Bird tee shot.
You gotta hope to hit it bad to see him that close. It's surreal. It's like a dream.
Definitely worth paying for, that's for sure.
While fans were excited to see who was here at St. George's, a lot of the talk around the golf course this week has been about who's not here. Dustin Johnson and Phil Mickelson are just 2 of the big-name golfers making headlines in recent weeks for agreeing to join the LIV Golf Tour, a new organization financially backed by the Saudi government, which is often scrutinized for human rights violations. Today, the PGA Tour announced that all 17 players who have joined are suspended.
Any PGA Tour matters, I'm not going to discuss publicly at this time.
It doesn't bother me. I'm very happy where I am.
It's unfortunate. I would love. I respect the PGA Tour a lot, and I would love to be able to play on it, and for that matter, play wherever you want.
Those are just some of the players who were lured away with huge signing bonuses, in some cases upwards of $100 million. Players who turned down massive paydays to stay with the PGA applauded the decision today.
I'm pleased. I think anybody that's shocked clearly hasn't been listening to the message that Jay and everybody's been putting out. They took that risk going into it, whether they thought it was a risk or not. And, like I've said the whole time, I have great belief and great confidence in the PGA Tour and where we're going and where we're continuing to grow to.
Canadian Corey Connors refused to let today's announcement take away from the excitement of playing on home soil this week.
I don't know. Don't really have much to say in regards to that. Just, trying to focus on the task at hand this week and try and put on a good show for the hometown fans.
Today's announcement means that the 17 players suspended will not be eligible to compete in any PGA-sanctioned event. That includes the President's Cup and the PGA Championship. Those players will be allowed to play in the U.S. Open, which gets underway next week, and the British Open in July. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Three finalists from the Lower Mainland are going to Toronto to compete at the 35th Annual Championship of the Spelling Bee of Canada. 11-year-old Parnavdeep Singh Kundi of Vancouver will be competing in the junior division.
It actually feels pretty good. I am actually sadly going to miss a bit of school on Monday with this competition. But I think I've prepared enough, and I hope I can win or at least get second or third.
Oh, he sounds like a bit of an overachiever, doesn't he? He's great. On May 1st, Parnavdeep won a local online competition. His winning words were heme and pictograph. He will be one of 14 regional finalists in his age category, competing for cash, trophies, and prizes. Sunday's competition will be the first in-person championship held since 2019. And meanwhile, the hunt for UFOs just got a little more serious. NASA is setting up a team to study unidentified flying objects. It is the agency's first step in attempting to explain mysterious sightings in the skies and the latest sign of how seriously the U.S. government is taking the phenomena. The space agency says the focus will be on identifying available data, what to look for in the future, and how NASA can use that to advance scientific understanding of UFOs.
This is what we do at NASA. This is not our first rodeo. We discover and explore many, many things in ways that, frankly, at the beginning look almost like a miracle, and then as we go forward, looks like something new we never would have guessed.
The team of scientists is due to be convened by the fall. It will spend roughly 9 months developing a public report on its findings. And before we go tonight, it is always nice to see your friends and colleagues get recognized for their work, and it's extra nice when it happens twice. Our very own Karen Larson has been inducted into the BC Sports Hall of Fame again. Karen was recognized in the media category for her work here at CBC Vancouver. Over the last 30 years, she has covered 8 Olympic Games and 5 Paralympic Games. Her time as a sports broadcaster has paved the way for women in the field. Karen is the second woman ever to be recognized in the media category. She was first honored in the BC Sports Hall of Fame for her successes as a world champion synchronized swimmer. Huge congratulations to Karen. I've had the honor of working alongside her, and she is wonderful and so accomplished, and Olympic swimmer just in our midst. It's great. All right, and that is it for us tonight. Thank you for being with us on CBC News at 6. And I want to remind you, if you're not already watching us on CBC Gem, that is our free app. You might want to check it out. I believe it's commercial free too, so that's always a good sell. That does it for us tonight here at CBC Vancouver. I think Anita will be back on Monday. Have a great weekend.